Hi everyone, this is Rob Drummond. Welcome to the August 2016 Confusion Clinic training webinar. A big welcome to everyone who is new to my world. I put on these webinars once a month to go over a copywriting or marketing topic that I think isn't being covered adequately in about 1,000 other places around the internet. So today I'm talking with the lady you can see on your screen, that's Kenda Macdonald, and we're talking about her customer avatar exercise. So a customer avatar exercise, on the face of it, is a creative exercise where you basically dream up or imagine an ideal customer, and you give your ideal customer a name and a background, and you say that they live in London and they have 3.7 children or whatever. And I think when people are new to this, they kind of feel like it's a bit of an exercise in daydreaming. I was going to say creative masturbation, but I don't know if we can say that or not. But actually, a customer avatar exercise is really important, because if I were to ask many people watching this about who your customers are, a lot of you would give me really bad answers. You would say things like, my customers are men in the United States who are aged between 45 and 55, who like dogs. And that, for someone like me, so I'm a copywriter mostly, that for someone like me is completely non-usable. And the whole point of doing an avatar exercise is that whenever you make someone up, you actually think of a real person. So so there's all of this hidden knowledge in your head that you have about your customers that's kind of stored away, but it's really difficult to access, and that's what a customer avatar exercise is supposed to do. So anyway, I'm working with Kenda at the moment. So to introduce Kenda, Kenda is an Infusionsoft certified partner. Kenda is originally from South Africa, now lives in or near Stafford in the UK, and is a marketing automation expert. So Kenda specializes in building up marketing automation funnels, specifically in Infusionsoft, but you've also done some work in HubSpot, I think, as well.
Yeah.
So Kenda's building out all of these funnels, and I'm working with Kenda on a particular project where Kenda's doing a lot of the automation, I'm doing the copy, and I've been really pleasantly surprised to discover that Kenda starts all of her projects with a customer avatar exercise. So this is really different to what most marketing automation people do. Most marketing automation consultants and people will just go into Infusionsoft or whatever system that you use. And by the way, we're probably going to mention Infusionsoft a few times in this video, but you could really exchange Infusionsoft with whatever system you use. So I use Infusionsoft, Kenda uses Infusionsoft. If you use something else, that's fine. All of what we're talking about will apply in other systems. You know, it's equally possible to confuse yourself in Entreport as it is in Infusionsoft. But yeah, so we're doing this project together, and Kenda's project start with this customer avatar exercise. And I've done avatar exercises in the past, and I think that Kenda's avatar exercise is leaps and bounds ahead of what I've been doing, and that's what we're going to go over on today's call. So Kenda, welcome.
That's a big compliment. That's a big compliment. A lot to live up to now.
I don't know if you want to start off by talking about how this why you start off with an avatar exercise, basically, because I think it's quite unusual.
Yeah, a lot of implementers do tend to jump in feet first and start mucking things up. I really wanted to get away from that. And part of the thing is the fact that I specialize in behavioral automation. And so if I'm going to behaviorally automate something or create a system that reacts to your customers and your prospects in a behavioral way, I can't do that if we don't have behavior to automate with. So what that basically boils down to is doing automation that's triggered based on what people are doing, maybe what they're not doing. And part of that is understanding when to send someone an email, when to offer them a certain product, when to do a whole lot of things. And if you don't have understanding of who your customer is, and you don't have understanding of who your prospect is, and you're not really crystal clear on the reason why they do things, I can't do my job properly. And so that's why I started creating this avatar process, because I realized with the hundreds of small businesses that I've worked with, nobody really has very clear understanding of who the customer is, why they're doing what they're doing, and what they're really interested in, and what those motivations are. And it makes it hard for me to do my job. It makes it hard for you to do your job, because, you know, Rob, you can't write your content if your customer doesn't have a clear understanding of their customer. So I actually have a background in forensics, and specifically in forensic psychology. And part of that background is profiling. And so essentially what this avatar document is it's a profile. It's a profile of behavior, and it's a step-by-step document to help you figure out exactly what the behavior is of your audience, and how you can tailor all of your campaigns to that. So it's been an exercise in helping businesses be able to be very specific and very targeted with what they're doing for higher conversion rates, higher return on investment, better click-through rates, better engagement, and longer customer lifetime value, really.
So most people are kind of starting off with marketing automation when actually there are some questions that they need to ask about who it is that they're automating for.
Yeah.
And what their behavior is.
Yeah. There needs to be some very good clarity on exactly why you're wanting to automate something before you automate it. And even further than that, understanding who you're automating it for and what their behavior is, so that you know why you're automating it, so I can automate it.
Can we just define marketing automation for anyone who's kind of new to all of this?
Yeah, sure. So let's take an example of a normal opt-in sequence, so something that you and I would be incredibly familiar with, but some people might be trying to get into or might not be that familiar with. So for instance, a prospect or a lead would land on your website. They might fill out a sign-up form in order to get a lead magnet, and the automation behind that is that they fill out their information, and the system, whichever system you're using, we happen to use Infusionsoft, delivers that lead magnet that person has signed up for. Once you can take that further then by then saying, okay, I'm going to deliver these emails to these people over this time period. And that's generally what most people do with automation. You know, sign up, deliver some content, sell people some stuff. We take that one step further by creating campaigns that change or adapt based on the person's behavior. So if somebody is engaging with the content, we can send them more content, or we can send them the content that they're engaging with, or we can offer something to them sooner because they're ready for it. If someone isn't engaging with stuff, we can mix stuff up. So it's all about looking at what that person is doing and going, okay, let's adapt to that like you would in a normal conversation. You change things up. You don't have the same conversation with everybody the same day. At least I hope you don't.
So you're actually listening out for things that people are telling you and things that they're doing, and adapting your automation accordingly.
That's exactly it. Yeah. It's exciting stuff.
Should we have a look at your avatar documents?
Yes, we should. Right, let me share my screen for you.
People can actually get hold of a copy of this. I've created a link. I'll put a link under the video, but it's confusionclinic.com/ninjas. So /NINJAS.
That's it.
Shall open this.
Okay. Can you see my screen okay?
I can. I'm just going to make it bigger. Yep. Okay. We're all good.
Perfect. Okay, so this is the document. It is a sizable document. It's a big chunky thing, and the reason it's so big is it's taking you through a 4-step process. And the 4-step process is really where this kind of becomes quite powerful. So, Rob, do you mind if I drag people through the difference between avatars and personas?
Yeah, please do.
All right, so effectively, most of the time when you're looking at your target audience and your perfect customer, you're looking at a specific grouping of people. And this is where most avatar strategies fall flat, because they're always telling you to think about one specific person. the chance is when you look at that one specific person that you're trying to imagine in your mind, and when you actually start looking at your customer base, you start to realize that yes, you're looking for a specific person with specific traits that they have and specific information, like they live here and they do this and they do that. That doesn't help me do my job. Okay, it doesn't help me do my job. It doesn't help Rob do his job, because that doesn't actually tell us what that person is interested in. It doesn't tell us what keeps that person awake at night. It doesn't tell us the real motivators behind why they do what they do. And so it means that your marketing is quite lackluster, and your campaigns will probably have lackluster results if you have campaigns running. So your avatar is really your ideal audience. And that's kind of where most people stop. They go, okay, my ideal audience is such and such a person that does this. When you start looking at that audience, you start to realize that there are actually different personalities within that audience. And those personalities will respond to your information differently. They're still part of your ideal audience because they fit all of the information for your ideal audience. Those are the people you want to attract. But within that ideal grouping of people, you've got people who will consume content differently. They'll consume different types of content. They'll want to buy different products at different stages in their product life cycle. And they behave differently. And those are your personas. So the best way to show you this is actually with this little flow chart over here. So the best way to think about this is your avatar is your ideal customer. They are the ideal grouping, your target audience that you're looking for. But within that avatar and within that ideal customer, you have different personas that make up that grouping of people. Okay, so this is the example that we generally use over here. And I believe that Rob's actually got a pretty good close to home example for this. But effectively, in this example, we've got three personas. Okay, so you've got your ideal audience, which is your avatar, and persona A makes decisions based on how the outcome will make them feel. Okay, so they make decisions based on personality and emotion. If the product feels right, they're going to buy it. Yep, that's Rob. Persona B makes decisions based on logic. They make decisions based specifically on whether it ticks all the right boxes for them. They're a very logically based person. They don't want to hear about all the emotional stuff. They just want to have all of the facts and they want to digest that information. But because we're humans, you have to kind of weave the emotion in there carefully. But you can't hit them over the head with emotion. And they're certainly not going to buy a product because it feels right. They're going to buy a product because it ticks all of the boxes that they want it to tick. So, you know, you've got an immediate difference there because persona A is going to buy a product pretty quickly off of the get-go if it feels right for them. Persona B is going to digest information over a much longer period of time, collect all the data they need to collect in order to make the decision, and then buy it once that sort of thing, once all the boxes are ticked. And then persona C is going to make decisions based on past experience. So they're actually going to make decisions based on the features, yes, so all of the facts about the situation, and yes, based on some of the emotional feelings that this product is giving them, but predominantly they're going to make their decisions based on social proof. What are their friends doing? What's their family doing? What is the biggest guru at the moment telling them that they should be doing? You know, so persona C is going to make decisions based on social proof. Now, Rob, you're a feelings person, right? Yeah. Probably what makes you such a good copywriter.
This is really interesting. So in my household, I am persona A. I will make decisions very quickly, and the bigger the decisions, so vehicles, houses, I just get excited about something, I fall in love with an idea, and boom, I want to do it. Whereas Lindsay, my wife, will need to evaluate all of the options. So when we moved into this house, this was like, I don't know, the second house we looked at, and I got out of the house and I walked out of earshot of the estate agent, and I was like, yeah, that's the one, let's just do that. but no, we had to drive on Sheffield for like 3 more days looking at so many more properties that were just obviously not going to be as good. But that's how she makes decisions. She has to gather all of the information and then come to a decision. So we kind of mediate. Like I will kind of nudge her to make a decision, and she will kind of nudge me to think about things a bit more. But I'm also definitely not Persona C. So when I'm making decisions, like the last thing I want to do is read reviews. Like I hate reading reviews on Amazon because I think most of them are written by cretins. But other people really rely on so other
Yeah.
people will really, if they're buying something on Amazon. So Lindsay was telling me about her boss, and they were buying a scanner for the office. A scanner, it's about a $70 piece of office equipment, but he had to read every single Amazon review of the scanner before placing an order, and it just illustrates how different people come to the same decision through
Yeah.
different routes.
Yeah, my partner and I would drive you mad, Rob, because I'm Persona B for sure, definitely. But my partner Mike is like Persona B times 1,000. he he just collects every single little piece of information that he can find in something. Not too bothered about social proof at all, but collects. It just takes so long to make decisions, even way past logical little me. So yeah, he'd probably drive you completely up the wall.
I think the big thing for this I think for me, the thing about this is it it should make you realise that not all of your customers are like you. And we tend to assume that other people are more like us than they actually are. And we
Yeah.
tend to assume that other people make decisions using the same criteria as we would, especially business owners. And I think that's something that I often say to people is like, unless you're personally going to buy all of your own products for the next 3 months, then your opinions and the way that you buy stuff is actually less important than thinking about how other people might buy your stuff. So actually,
You are not your target audience.
yeah, and actually, you don't really know that much about them because all you really know about them is, well, firstly that they're not you, so you understand everything to do with your products. They don't. You understand all of the terminology and all of the lingo. They don't. And actually, it makes it quite difficult to think about who they are and what they want.
Yeah, that's exactly why I like to refer to this as a profile. Because when you start studying profiling, one of the things that you have to do is put yourself aside, and that's not a mistake in grammar. You do have to put yourself aside. You have to put aside all of the things that you consider make you up to stop you from being biased about what you're reading or who you're profiling. And it's a very difficult thing to learn how to do, which is why profilers are headhunted by different organizations big time. But this is a profile. You're building a profile not only on one person, but you're building a profile on possibly several different people. And it's why it is a lengthy document, because it's taking you through 4 different steps and pulling different bits of information out in such a way that by the end you will have some personas. So we're not expecting you to sit down and look at this document and go, okay, I can see this person here and this person here, like from the get-go. In fact, that's definitely the wrong way to go about it. I just want you to sit down and think about your business and start thinking about each of the questions individually and moving through the document in a systematic way. Don't skip bits. Don't run to the end. You're more than welcome. Go through the document several times is probably the best bit of information I could give you. But when you're doing this, it's nice to have someone to sound it off with as well. So if you've got someone to talk to about it, but if you catch yourself thinking, oh, I'd do that, or oh well, this is how I'd respond to this question, then you really need to take a step back, because you are not your target audience. Your target audience, you're selling to a target audience, but you are not your target audience.
I think it's perhaps helpful. I think there's a couple of things there. I think that so going through this document that Kenda has will take quite a lot of time, but
Yeah.
actually what we're doing is we're investing a bit of time now up front to save a lot of time later on to make sure that things don't go wrong or that we don't spend a lot of time building things in the wrong way.
Yeah, for sure. So I mean, this is the way that you need to view this is as the foundations of your business. This is either the foundation or the cornerstone of your business. It kind of is what should hold everything together, because your avatar is everything that your business is. If you don't have customers, you don't have a business. So you've got to put a lot of effort into this to really understand that customer so that you can market to them correctly. This document is going to give you a huge amount. It's going to give you cheat sheets in order to build campaigns from. It's going to give you very good ideas of exactly how many emails you need to put in a sequence, which I'm sure pleases Rob no end. It's going to show you, give you lots of information on exactly what products you could actually create in the future for your target audience. There's no more thinking about whether or not your target audience may like this and how something is going to be taken up. You'll know immediately whether or not it's going to get taken up and whether or not it's going to be a success, because if it doesn't fit in with your target audience, it doesn't fit in. So it becomes really the cornerstone of your business because it becomes a foundation to build something on. So it's worth the amount of time to put into this. And any expert that you work with going forward, if they are an expert worth their salt, whether it's a copywriting expert or a marketing expert or an automation expert, will thank you for going through this process.
Yeah, I can verify that. And I think actually, whether you're talking about building an Infusionsoft campaign or whether you're putting together an email sequence or whatever it is, I think that raw materials and clarity in terms of what you're trying to communicate, I think they're really the problems. The problem is not knowing what to do. It's having the raw material in place, and I think that's what this process provides, is the raw material.
Yeah, I mean, there are a couple of questions at the end of this document. The last two questions, actually, at the end of section 3, which I'll show you in a little bit. But those last two sections become basically the cornerstone of you creating campaigns and the raw material for creating those campaigns, because it asks some fundamental questions that allow you to reverse engineer stuff. And when you reverse engineering things, it kind of gives you the little blocks of information to get to that end point. And that is the raw material for writing your copy. It's the raw material for what you need to put on your sales pages, because you know what that pain is and you know what you need to sort of interact with immediately. And it's the raw material with which you can even do your AdWords, your Facebook retargeting. There's huge amounts of little bits of raw content that this document is going to give you.
So all of you who are all busy building stuff in Infusionsoft should stop for a day or so while you do this.
Definitely.
You all know who you are.
Yes, you definitely need to stop making yourself busy and make yourself profitable instead.
Okay,
right.
so what's next?
Okay, so what we have next here is getting straight into step 1. So step 1 is all about your business. Okay, so it's pulling all of the information out about your business. You start by thinking about your business. The reason being is it is very difficult to put yourself in someone else's shoes, and it's difficult to take yourself out of it. So instead, we're anchoring you with your mission statement. So your mission statement is a really central message to your business. If you don't have a mission statement, you should create one, definitely. But it's central to all of your products. Everything should be linked to the central message that you're portraying to your prospects and to your customers. So we start with the mission statement, and then we move on to the features and benefits and the pains associated with those features and benefits. So Rob, being the expert copywriter that you are, would you like to give the lovely people some tips on features and benefits?
I was actually going to suggest, I don't really have a mission statement as such, so I was going to throw something past you and see what you thought.
Go on. I like it.
So my business really exists to help people who use marketing automation tools to tell their story and generate a consistent flow of leads.
You said you didn't have a mission statement.
Yeah.
But you have one.
Okay, well there we go. I mean, if that fits your criteria, I mean that's basically what I do. But it's that sort of thing, the sort of thing that people should be filling in that box, that sort of thing.
For sure, it's basically like it's like what your business is in a sentence or two. It is why you are doing what you're doing and what you are doing smooshed into 2 sentences, basically. And what you just did was give a very good summary of exactly what your business is and why you're doing it.
I think this is probably a danger of going off on a tangent, but I think purpose is something that probably evolves actually.
Hmm.
And I think the reasons behind I basically got into business just because I didn't like my job anymore. Basically, that was kind of how it all started, and it's kind of evolved from there. So maybe if people are struggling with that, then it isn't the end of the world. But
No,
but it's something to think about.
it's I think it should be something, because if you don't have clarity on the purpose of your business, you're going to have a lot more difficulty filling out the rest of this document. So it's definitely something you should have clarity on why your business is, basically. And so it is something very important to start with. But then again, you are completely right. Purpose does change over time. So this process should really be revisited every 6 months, because you grow, your business grows, the environment in which your business is in changes, everything changes, nothing is constant. So this document needs adapting as you're moving along.
Okay.
Okay.
You asked me a question about features and benefits.
Hmm.
What general advice?
General advice on how to do your features and benefits is features are generally easy for small business owners to do. It's easy to put the facts down about what your business is, but it's difficult to get into the benefits.
Yeah, so features is all. So if someone asked you about your products, features are all of the things that you would tell them. So if I have a motorbike, so if I was talking about the features, I'd say that it's got, I don't know, 2 mirrors, it's a 4-stroke engine, it's 675 cc. They're all features. To get to benefits, you have to keep asking, so what? It's like, well, okay, so it's a 4-stroke engine. So what? What does that actually mean? And that actually means it's more reliable. It doesn't make a horrible noise when you go down the road. You don't have to mix the oil in, and then if you keep asking so what, you get to better benefits. So you start off with some benefits, and you keep asking so what, and ultimately it basically makes my life easier because it avoids the pain of mixing in the oil and having the bike break down. And yeah, does that help? Does that answer the question?
Yeah, so effectively the features of your bike are all the facts, all the tangible things that you can touch and look at, and and see the real facts about your bike. Whereas the benefit of your bike is freedom, really, isn't it? It's saving you time, and then it's a little bit of freedom there. And then I guess I have put some tips on saying so what, because I find that is probably the most helpful thing that you can do when you're doing this process is just say what. We started with our very first feature when we started our business was automation systemizes your business. And we really thought that was a benefit. We were like, really, 5 years ago, we were like, yeah, that's a great benefit. And now we know a lot better. And so by consistently asking ourselves, so what, about this entire process, we turned automation systemizes your business into automation saves you time, increases your sales, and gives you better quality of life as a business owner. It's a much better statement than automation systematizes your business, because it hits you right in the pain point. So that brings me onto the third column of this little spreadsheet over here. Is that every single benefit is going to have a specific pain attached to it. Often it could be, there could be pains repeated throughout the process. That's okay. There's always going to be overlap here because personality is confusing at the best of times. But if we think about that specific pain point of that benefit of ours, we can say that the pain is being time poor, because when money no longer becomes an issue, time becomes the bigger problem. So it could be you're not making enough money in your business. That could be a pain point. But it could also actually be that because you're time poor, that's the big pain point. So you need to link the pain to the benefit as well.
I think from a copywriting perspective, you can also paint a picture of what that actually looks like. So with my very first motorbike, I used to brake a lot. And I was practically on first name terms with Green Flag, who are a breakdown company. And I'd have to sit there by the side of the road waiting for Green Flag, and then they'd come, and then they wouldn't have They wouldn't have a trailer. They could actually tow a bike, so they'd have to send another van out that could tow the bike. But that's what I've just done. I just painted that picture of pain for you.
Yeah.
And it came from the pain column.
Yeah. Yeah. So they're all interlinked. By the way, when you get a little bit further down and you start actually mapping, reverse engineering your funnels and reverse engineering your campaigns, you'll find that in order to get a prospect or a customer to a certain step in their life cycle, you need to have satisfied certain benefits. And it starts becoming very easy to write emails or to craft emails around a benefit or a pain point. And it's a fantastic cheat sheet. It's a fantastic little piece of raw content that you can go away and create quite a lot on, because it would be very easy for Rob to write an entire email. Well, probably is full stop very easy for Rob to write an entire email, but I know it would be easier for me as a business owner who is not a copywriter to sit down and write an email when I've got a pain to write about, because you can paint a picture.
But this comes back to raw material. It's hard to write an email full stop if you don't have the raw material,
Yeah.
and if you haven't identified the pain in the first place.
Exactimo. Exactly. All right, so there is a lot of space for you to do your features and your benefits and the pains associated with that, specifically because you'll probably have quite a lot of these. You may want to print this page out a few times as well. Okay, and then from that information, you'll start to find between the benefits that you've listed out and your mission statement that you've got some core benefits. And these are going to be the benefits that connect your mission, that come out in your mission statement and come out in your benefits list. And these are going to be the core benefits that your business provides. So for instance, the core benefit that our business provides is saving time and increasing profits. Those are our two core benefits. Everybody will have some core benefits that they have, but lo and behold, using those two little pieces, those two little core benefits, we now know what the core pains are of our audience. And we can also then take that and turn those into handy little taglines. So again, little building blocks.
Yeah, so I, for example, I don't know if this is a bit off the bat, but I help my clients to engage with their customers by telling better stories, which I guess actually is a feature, really, because that's what they're doing. The storytelling is the feature, but the benefit that comes out of that is stronger customer relationships. Yeah, it's also tricky. Like I feel like it's quite hard to go through this on a first pass. It's the sort of thing that I think you're going to have to take to a coffee shop and work through.
Yeah, it's definitely something that you should kind of isolate yourself. Say that put yourself away, but also have someone to bounce ideas off with. But it's going to be something that you're going to need to revisit a few times. This document is actually not. It's actually not available to download on the internet anywhere. The reason being is I only give this document to my elite clients. And I only give it to my elite clients because I can work very closely with them and tutor them through the process on this. It is something that you do have to revisit a few times. It's not to say you can't do it yourself. You can do this yourself if you apply yourself. But it is handy to have someone to bounce ideas off with, and it's especially handy to have an expert to talk to who can look at something and immediately spot some area that you could work on.
I'm always reminded of, have you heard of pair programming?
Yes.
So pair programming, so there are companies, there are IT companies, like IT development companies, and what they will do is, instead of leaving programmers just to do their work, they will pair them up so there are two programmers to one computer. And they found that they actually make more progress because one programmer by himself is basically stuck like 70% of the time, whereas two of them actually get to, even though there's only one machine, they actually make a lot more progress because they help each other out and they don't get stuck anywhere near so often. Yeah,
and I think there is a benefit of having someone to bounce ideas off with, because sometimes you'll find yourself talking through a sentence and you'll have had the answer in your head already by the time you're halfway through the sentence, and it's just that exercise of saying something to someone and also getting a slightly different perspective on something is great as well.
So maybe people need to be doing pair profiling.
Pair profiling. Yeah, like
Pair
that.
avatar exercises.
PAs, yeah. PAs or PPs. Right, sorry. I have the sense of humor of a small child. Right. Okay, so the rest of step one really just builds on those benefits that you've put together, and you start to think about, okay, what are the unique and standout points of my business, based on, you know, the feelings that you're eliciting in people, based on the benefits. What are you actually really selling to people? You're not selling them motorbikes. You're selling them the sense of freedom. You're selling them the freedom to be able to go out on the open road and know that your motorbike's not going to break down. And the message becomes a lot stronger, and your campaigns will lose that lackluster effect because you're being very laser focused and you're hitting the pain points and you're really talking to those benefits. And so we kind of move on now. Associated problems is probably one of the sections I get the most amount of questions on. Now, this isn't a problem that is associated with you or your business. This is a problem that is associated with the problems that your avatar already has. So if your avatar, for instance, is having a problem in that their processes aren't systematized, so they haven't processed or systematized their business, they've probably got problems in other parts of their business as well. So they might not have any processes at all inside their business. So somebody may have a problem with a child who is rebelling, and they're coming to you as somebody who has some good advice on how to handle teenage relationships. But that's not going to be the only problem they're going to have. They're going to have other associated problems, like they're not sleeping very well at night. So you could help giving them some meditation exercises to help them sleep well at night. There are going to be other things that are part of the complex relationships that humans are that are going to be associated to what you're doing. That's not to say that you'll actually be able to solve that problem. The associated problems give you a great basis for creating new products, but they also give you a great basis for joint ventures.
So this is like thinking about the wider context of their life.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah,
guess
exactly.
it's almost like a cog, isn't it? So you've got your
Yeah.
problem in the middle, but then you've got these associated problems kind of going off as
Exactly.
spokes on the wheel.
There's never only one problem. People always have several problems.
Some people have more problems than others, but
Exactly.
me being one of them. But anyway.
Yeah. We've all got problems. Objections is pretty straightforward in this context. It's, you know, why would people not buy your product? What would they say if you asked them to purchase your product and they said no? Why would they say no? What's the reason behind them saying no? Why wouldn't they buy it, basically? It's very powerful to know that, because you can speak to that straight away in your sales copy, and sort of quell those objections.
Something Sean D'Souza always talks about is that there are always objections. Like, even if, so I might go for a beer this evening and I might just go to the local pub, and there's actually objections in my mind because it's like, I don't know, raining, or, you know, or I might watch Bake Off on television instead. They're all really stupid objections, but your brain always thinks of something as an objection. So they're always there.
They're always there, even if they're tiny and silly. There are, and there's some more serious objections as well that people don't necessarily talk about. So something that is probably good to talk to here is that sometimes there are some pain points that when you don't have a relationship with that person just yet, when you haven't built up that relationship with people, sometimes certain audiences don't like to talk about certain things until the certain relationship is there. Now, I have no filter whatsoever. I am not sure if that's just my personality or it's because I'm South African, and every other South African I know is incredibly outspoken and just says whatever they need to say. So I do find it difficult sometimes interacting with British people, because British people don't like to talk about certain things. We pretend that they don't exist, and we all queue politely. We certainly don't talk to one another on public transport. So sometimes I find that there are certain things that you kind of have to build up to, and that's worth keeping in mind sometimes when you get to the objection stage. I don't know how you feel about that, Rob, but I have seen some people burn their lists that way.
Yeah, so I think you've got to be a bit sensitive as well.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good way to put it. Don't talk to people in public; they'll stare at you funny. All right, okay, so once you kind of, authority and expertise is, as it says on the tin, this is all pulling out things about your business and what makes you unique. Step 2 is where you start moving away from your business and you start thinking about your avatar. Now, it's important to point out when you get into step 2 that you start this thinking generically about your avatar. You know, make sure that you're thinking about as many things as possible. Don't limit yourself. Try and be creative in the things that you're thinking about. Don't try and compartmentalize your personas right now. The document will help you do that. Towards the end of the document, when you're going through this process, it's important to think about your audience and your ideal audience, because otherwise you'll compartmentalize things prematurely and it won't be as powerful. Okay, so we start with demographics. Now, demographics are kind of where most avatars stop. Demographics are all of the typical or average characteristics of your target market in terms of physical properties. So they are the age range, gender, where someone lives, that sort of thing. They're physical facts about your ideal demographic, but they're about your ideal avatar, but they're not actually going to tell you too much about behavior. Okay, they're quite good for when you're setting up Facebook adverts and that sort of thing, but they're that's kind of where their use ends. It's kind of hard to write copy for people if you only know the demographics. It's certainly hard to build campaigns for those people. Okay, and then next, we look at your negative demographics. So just as important as thinking about your ideal customer is understanding who your sort of worst customer is, the person you really don't want to work with. It's really important to understand that person, that customer from hell, you know, the really bad one that, you know, kept you awake at night. Because when you're writing your content and you're building your campaigns and you're writing sales pages and landing pages and websites, you can actually, if you're clever, or if you're working with an awesome copywriter like Rob, you can drop in little bits of information that would repel your negative avatar. You know, send them away from you basically before they actually opt in. So you're getting rid of the problem before it really becomes a problem.
Oh, yes.
We've all been burned by that one before.
Yeah.
Okay, and then we kind of start touching on a few psychographics here. So we think about someone who might buy your product, and by thinking about this, what kind of person would buy your solution? It's very it's helpful to think about someone who. So who would buy a motorbike? Someone who liked to have a little bit of freedom in their life. Someone who doesn't necessarily want to cart passengers around.
Somebody who lives in a busy city and doesn't want to wait in traffic. It's actually a genuine reason.
Yes, there you go. So you're starting to build an idea of who that person is, but you're not quite getting into the psychographics just yet. But it's good to know what kind of person would buy your solution. And then we move on to the psychographics. So step 3 is the meatiest part of this document. This is where things get really interesting. This is where you get really involved in the psychology of who not just who the person is, but why that person is, why they're doing what they're doing, why they're interested in what you're and what you're selling, basically, and what your solution is and how you're going to help them. So we start about thinking about people's traits, and we move through what they value, and we go really deep. We go into their fears and their frustrations, so we're getting into the much more primal part of people's personalities here, and then we get into their sophistication level. Now, this is probably the one that I get a lot of questions on as well. So their sophistication is not talking about whether or not they wear high-heeled shoes or trainers. We're rather talking about what's their level of experience with this problem. So how do they how close are they to solving it? Do they know that they even have a problem?
Yeah, so my first motorbike that was a nightmare, I bought off eBay because I was not a very sophisticated buyer of motorbikes at that point. I now am a more sophisticated buyer and would not buy a motorbike off eBay ever again.
Okay. All right. So it's basically where they're at, and how close are they to solving the problem, and do they even know there's a problem? Because Rob obviously wasn't very sophisticated when he bought his motorbike.
Yeah, I genuinely wasn't aware of the problems, and I was only made aware of those problems by the painful reality of the whole experience. So.
Yeah. Better to find a motorbike expert to help you through that instead. Yeah? All right, so we move on to the identity and image of your ideal prospect. And when we're talking about identity and image, we're talking about who they identify as and what their image is. So probably the easiest example to look at for this is me, actually, because I'm a bit of an oddball. So I identify as a small business owner. I am as a small business owner. That's what kind of makes my identity. But that's not my image. My image is actually probably a heavy metal rock chick, bit of a nerd, right? So that's who I am. That's my image. That's my in-group. My in-group are heavy metalers, but I'm also a small business owner. So who are they identifying with, and what's their image? How do they portray themselves? So this is particularly important for businesses that are focusing on fashion or e-commerce stores, because image becomes hugely important in fashion. You're not going to be selling, a £2,000 pair of shoes to the frumpy lady next door who wears very sensible shoes. So the image is very important then, because they're not going to identify as a fashionista effectively. Go on, Rob. You going to say something?
No, nothing to add at this point.
Cool. All right, so then we move on to wants and aspirations, and you start moving through the document and really start building an idea of what this person is doing. And we get to the core bits around 3.7. What mistakes are they making right now? So what are their problems right now? What are the issues that they're making right now? And these are great action points and spurs to action. We start looking at the mistakes that they're making and their wants right now. What 3 things do they want right now? Now, okay, you're probably not going to get 3 things here. You might have 9, you might have 12, you might have a lot of things that your prospect wants right now. But when you start having a lot of those things, you might find that some of their wants are conflicting. And that's perfect, because when you start getting little bits of conflicting information, you're starting to actually build your personas. Because you'll start finding that, for instance, you might have an audience who is money focused, and one part of your audience might be really focused on money, and they want money right now for no other reason than they want money. But you might have a part of your audience that wants money because they're a single stay-at-home mom and they're providing for their kids. Okay, so instantly you've got a massive divide in the same audience, and you're going to talk to those people very differently, because those people who are really just focused on money might just be bachelors. They're not going to be, their values aren't anything to do with their children because they don't have kids. That might become something in the future, but they're not there right now. Whereas the single stay-at-home mom who wants to build a business is very focused on providing everything for her children. But what they want right now is money. So we're starting to tap into that now. So we move on to what prospects want to avoid. So what are they actually trying to get away from? You'll find that audiences are either towards or from motivated. I don't know if you can talk to this a little bit, Rob.
Yeah, I think some people are more motivated by moving towards a particular outcome, and most marketers and most marketing kind of focus on the positive thing. But I actually think that the majority of people in the world are more motivated by not losing something.
Yeah.
And I think it's a bit scary to kind of focus your marketing on that, but I think generally it's more effective.
Yeah. It's and when you start thinking about what do your prospects actually want to avoid the most, you start being able to build very effective headlines for sales pages.
What is the worst situation that could happen if they don't buy your product? Will they go off and buy the wrong product? What is the outcome of that? And actually, you can fill auto-response sequences with all sorts of stories about this, and it's got to get people's attention, and it's going to make them think.
Yeah, you're hitting the pain points, but you're also hitting some kind of almost feral parts of us. You know, the bits that get really scared when we think about sort of some things. So what are they really trying to avoid? Now, these are the two important questions in this document. If everything else is nonsense, which it's not, it's incredibly important, these two questions here are hugely important. So this is, what do they need to recognize, agree, and believe in advance before you present your product to them? Okay, and those three things, recognize, agree, and believe, are hugely important because people need to recognize something. So for instance, they might need to recognize that they have a problem. They need to agree that they have a problem. So recognizing and agreeing with something are actually two different steps. Recognition might mean they know that there is a problem, but they wouldn't talk about it. But you need to get them to the point that they are agreeing that there is a problem. And what do they need to believe? So do they need to believe that you can actually help them before you can present your product to them?
So Lindsay is aware of the problem of the fact that she never does any washing up, but she has not agreed yet to, or she has not agreed, and she does not believe she should do anything about it.
Yeah, so Lindsay needs to be nurtured a little bit more about the benefits of doing washing up, doesn't she, before you can present your solution?
So some people actually so to convert that into a real example, some people are presenting their offer too early.
Yes, exactly. So for this kind of gets people to the point where you go, okay, if people need to recognize this and they need to agree this and they need to believe this, getting them to these points actually involves these pain points. So I need to have spoken to these specific pain points before I can present my product. And lo and behold, each of your pain points has a benefit associated to it. So you're looking at your end point and you're going, in order to get my elite program or whatever it is at the end of the funnel, what does my prospect need to recognize, agree, and believe before I can give them that product? Well, they need to recognize that they have a problem. They need to agree that they need to do something about it, and they need to believe that I can help them with it. And in order to get them to that point, I need to have spoken to them about this pain point, this pain point, this pain point, and this pain point, and prove to them that I can do it. And each of those pain points relates to a benefit, a specific benefit. And now if you look at that, each of those benefits and pain points creates the building blocks to how many emails you need, for instance, and exactly what content you put inside your campaign. So these two questions allow you to not only build all the content for your campaigns, but they allow you to determine how long your campaign should be as well. And of course, different personas are going to have different amounts of information that they need to get to this point. And that's where the length starts to vary in your campaigns and the content starts to get changed up.
So as an example, for someone building out a sequence, an email sequence, might they start off by hitting some of these emotional hot points that you're identifying in this document, but then perhaps moving on to slightly more logical arguments later on and perhaps introducing more social proof later on? Exactly.
That's exactly it. Because what you'll start finding, just with the three persona example that we used of someone who's feature-based, someone's benefit-based, someone who's feature-based, and someone who's social proof-based, people who are benefit-based are going to react very quickly. Like Rob wanted to get the house immediately. Lindsay's going to be in the sequence for much longer, right?
Forever.
Yeah, she'll be in there until you've talked her through all of the features and kind of carefully told her about the benefits as well.
Until we have looked at every single house for sale in Sheffield.
Exactly. And then my partner's mum would be in the sequence at the end because she'd want to read every review on Amazon before she bought something. Right? So suddenly your audience starts getting nicely chunked up and segmented, and your copy is changing as you get towards the end the end of the sequence. And there's no more guesswork. You've got the raw content. You can go away and you can build stuff. You've got your cheat sheets from this information here.
So all of this stuff is kind of already in your head. It's pulling it out in a structured way and then ordering it correctly so that you build appropriate sequences and appropriate automation to deliver that to people.
Yep, that's it. Okay, and then the next question is a slight variant on the first, and that's what do they need to realize, agree, and believe in advance before they understand your solution. Okay, so presenting them the solution is one thing, but getting them to understand your solution is a different thing. And it's not getting them to understand why your solution exists. It's getting them to understand why it's really good for them. So these questions build on top of one another. All right, so they're fantastic ways to reverse engineer things, and also fantastic ways to associate your products. So product associations is something that I could probably talk about for years, but if you'll find that you'll have certain benefits that are grouped with a specific product, and you'll have another product that builds on those benefits and adds a few little things onto it. So that's the next logical step. And you'll have another one that has another grouping of benefits and pain points. And these things will build up till they get to this point that they realize this, they agree this, and they believe this, and so they understand that your elite program is the perfect solution for them.
I have explained to my dad many, many times what I do for a living, and he kind of knows what I do, but he doesn't really understand what I do. So it's just as well that he's not in my target avatar.
He's not your target audience. No. Okay. Now, once you've done that, you congratulations. You need to have a drink or celebrate in whatever way you celebrate, because you're finally at the point. Yep, have a nice drinky.
This is my Mr. Greedy mug, by the way.
Because you're at the final step. This is a step I really enjoy. This is a step where I basically get out all of my pens and pencils, all of my highlighters, and go to town on the document, because this is where you start to pull out your personas. So you've extracted all of the information from your brains, it's in the document, and now you're looking back at the document and reading through it again and going, which bits are grouping to form a person? Okay, these things group logically together, so I'm going to highlight them all in yellow. And all of the things that kind of are associated with that person, I'm going to make them all yellow. You might find a better way for you to do that. I like colors because I'm quite visual, but I'd go through the document, and I do this for my clients all the time. I have 4 or 5 different colored highlighters, and I just highlight the things that feel like they group naturally together to become a person.
Most people have problems because they don't have enough colors in their highlighter drawer.
They don't have enough stationery.
That's right, or they don't have enough post-it notes in their life.
Exactly. That's very true. All right, so once you've used up all of the highlighters in your house and you've gone to Staples and bought some more, you've probably grouped all of your personas together, and you can start seeing those personas taking shape. So now you need to start visualizing them. And the best way to start visualizing about who this person actually is to name them. So if I scroll down, you'll see that there is now a section of this document that is devoted to the individual persona. In fact, there are 3 pages that are devoted to the individual persona. And what this is doing is it's taking all of the information that you have put previously in the document, but condensing it into one person. And so you'll separate all that information out into your different individual personas, but give them a name. Start to visualize. Well, what's their day-to-day life like? What do they do when they get up and when they go to bed on a normal day? And these documents become pivotal, because now you'll have 3 or 4 individual personas, and when you're thinking about creating your next product, you can pick this up and you can go, this is for persona A. This product will really hit all the buttons for persona A.
I think it's really important to be specific here as well. So where you're making a note of where someone lives, don't just say London. Be specific. Do they live in, I don't know, North Camden or whatever it is, or what is their income in education? Don't just put college level. 40 $1,000 or whatever. You put a really specific
Very
amount.
specific, yeah.
Yeah.
As specific as you can be, basically, because I find it handy when I'm doing this to imagine that the person is sitting across the table from me. It's been a problem a couple of times when I've been working with clients whose personas I wouldn't identify with. And I've imagined them sitting across the table giving me funny looks because of my funny coloured hair. But that kind of makes it very easy to put some specifics on them. So you need to be so specific that you could imagine sitting down and having a cup of tea with them. Right. And that is your avatar document. When you have completed that, you should be well on your way to leaving less money on the table with sales and upsells, higher customer lifetime value, increased engagement, happier customers, increased return on investment, better customer relationships, higher conversion rates, cohesive marketing strategies, lower cost of acquisition for your customers, more value for each of your customers, and more referrals, testimonials, and social sharing. And because Rob is awesome, he's convinced me to give it all to you for free.
I know. It's been really good to have you talk through this document, because I think it's really important that people do this, and I think that once you've done this, you'll go back to building in Infusionsoft or building in Ontraport or whatever you're building in, and you'll have a much greater sense of clarity in terms of who you're building for and what the message should be, and what you really need to focus on first to do all of those things that you just mentioned.
Yeah. You'll be happier.
Yeah. I think another thing for me as well that has really emerged, I think it's really powerful to do this with someone else. So that's something that you do, isn't it, Kenda? So I don't know if you would just want to mention how people can get in touch with you if they would like some help with this.
Yeah, for sure. The email address is here on the bottom of page 29. It's just ninja@automationninjas.com. Feel free to contact me if you have any questions whatsoever. More than happy to help. Because Rob is such a nice guy as well, we've decided we're going to put a special offer together for him. So when I do this process with my elite clients, I actually charge them for it. And the reason I charge them for it on top of the fees that I normally charge is to make them sit down and focus and really think about things. And there's no way to be focused other than spending money. Okay, so I've found by trial and error that that's the best way to do it. When I give this away, quite often people don't give it as much attention as they should.
People do not value what they do not pay for.
Exactly. So you guys better take it seriously. But I have
Kenda will hunt you down.
Yeah, I will hunt you down. I'll come and find you and make you take it seriously.
Angry South African lady with pink hair at your door wanted to know why you haven't done your avatar exercise yet.
So Rob asked me to put together a special offer for you guys. I normally charge around £300 for a couple of sessions to go through this, but we've discounted that by nearly half for you. So it's normally £279 to have a couple of sessions to go through the document. But we're letting you guys, if you find that you need some help and you just want someone to go through it and to assess it and to critique it as well, to make sure that it's tweaked nicely and you've got enough information in there and you're using it properly, you can have a couple of sessions with me for 150 squids.
So in dollars, that's about $250, I think, at the moment.
Is it? I have no
idea. We don't know, do we? We were talking about this the other day. I think something that's worth saying actually is if you're not in the UK, spending money in pounds is quite a good or a sensible thing to do at the moment.
Right now, yes.
Right now, yeah. Right now, you get quite a good raise. I also want to say that this isn't like a joint venture affiliate deal with Kenda and I. I'm basically pushing this out because I think it's valuable. So
I was actually very surprised when I got an email from Rob saying, "Hey, would you like to do a webinar? Because I really like the avatar process." Because Rob's from up north, sometimes I find him a bit unreadable because I find British people general difficult to read because you guys are very composed and South African people just aren't. And when I took him through it the first time because of this client that we're both working on, he had a very deadpan face, and I came off the call and I said to my partner Mike, I said, I don't know what he thought. He might have thought it was a bit pants. I'm not sure. And then I got an email a couple of days later saying, it was really good. Would you like to do a webinar together? I really think my audience could benefit from it. And I was like, oh, that's a good compliment.
I remember Perry Marshall telling a story about he ran a seminar in the US and they made loads of sales from it. And they came over to London and they presented the exact same seminar to a room full of stony-faced people. And he was like, and he said, I just don't know if they enjoyed it or not. And then it turned out later that they all did. It's just not how we are, I guess.
Yeah. It's not.
No.
I'll tell you a quick detour story. When I came here on holiday, my mum lived in the UK before I moved here. I came here on holiday to visit my mum, and I got on a London bus, just really excited about doing, buses in London, double deckers. We don't have public transport like that in South Africa. And we got on the bus and we had a great time chatting with some old ladies and chatting with these people and, making friends like we do. And we got off at the bus stop and everybody on the bottom of the bus waved at us and said goodbye. And, people were smiling and waving. And my mum's British friend just turned around to her and went, what the hell did you do on the bus? You don't talk to people on public transport. Yeah. If you do talk to people, they will talk back and they'll be genuinely surprised. If not, slightly bemused that you're talking to them in the queue, because that's not the place for talking.
No. Good. Okay. Well, thanks very much for this. The link that people can go to, I'm going to send the link out so people can sign up for your offer. It's confusionclinic.com/Kenda. And yeah, your email address is on the slide, and yeah, that's all we have to say on that, really.
Perfect. And it's a good URL, /Kenda.
/Kenda. It's like the best sort of URL.
Yeah, exactly. All right, well, I'm sure they'll be very useful for your business. Let me know if you've got any questions at all, and happy marketing.
Yep. Thanks, Kenda. Bye, guys.
No